Hello again. So let me start with a question, and you'll probably already know the answer, but what golf club company built the forged irons and wedges used by most of the tour professionals from the 50s through the 1990s? Well, it was the Wilson Sporting Goods Company out of Chicago. It ruled the world of golf during those 4 or 5 decades. Its detailed catalogs make these claims from the 1993 catalog. More tour victories, more major championships, more earnings than any other iron, and it all started in the 1950s, quote unquote. The winningest clubs in PGA Tour history, quote unquote. From 1993 again, Wilson wedges have consistently been the most widely used by tour players around the world. From 1981, Wilson forged blades were the most played club on the PGA Tour year after year. From 1986, 2 out of 3 tour players pitch or blast with a Wilson wedge. From 1991, Wilson staff irons are the #1 forged irons on tour and have been through the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Now that I've got your attention, I say all of this because I think that for younger golfers who grew up in kind of the Callaway, Ping, TaylorMade era where, those companies were dominant and the biggest names in golf tended to appear on TV with those names on their hats and golf bags. I think that maybe Wilson is not a company that's terribly familiar to you, and by the way, they're still making great clubs. They have a set of forged irons out right now that have gotten great reviews. They're blades, and I perhaps someday will be lucky enough to buy a set of those. They're gorgeous. They look wonderful. Wilson has always had great quality in what they produce, and it's just stunning. I will when I'm in the last segment, I'll show you some sets of 1958 and 1959 irons with the original grips. The clubs are virtually new, and they will show you what someone buying the new clubs in 1958 would see, and they're simply gorgeous. And so I wanted to read those statements about how they dominated the world to get your attention and bring you to why it is I have focused on 1956 through 1975 for the wedges I have tended to purchase over the years. It all started for me in about 1970 when I was in my teens, and I got a set for my birthday of 1969 Wilson Staff bullet backs. They're quite famous. They won U.S. Opens. Hale Irwin won 2 U.S. Opens. Bernhard Langer won a Masters or 2 with them. They're remarkable clubs, and I played yesterday, and I'm still playing them. They're wonderful. I've reshafted them with heavy shafts. I like heavier shafts than they had back then. But I've got several sets of those. And my first set sent me on a 30-year quest to acquire the sand wedge that matched those 1969-70 bullet backs, and I could not find one anywhere. I visit golf courses, look in the barrel. There was never even a Dynapowered wedge, let alone a 1969-70 Dynapowered wedge. And it wasn't until the arrival of eBay, the online auction website, that I was able to acquire a 69-70 sand wedge, and I got it. Bought it from a guy in Pennsylvania for about $60. It was beautiful. It had been used, no doubt. It had been used. I put a new grip on it, if I remember right. Played it, loved it. It had low bounce. It's the lowest of all of the bounces, coincidentally. But I loved it, and I got to thinking, well, I'd like to try some of those other Dynapowereds out. And so over the years, I bought many, sometimes multiple copies of the same year. And those purchases allowed me to acquire at least one of every model year between 56 and 75. And that has allowed me to measure the swing weights for you, information you can't find anywhere else. It has allowed me to estimate the bounce. I don't have any kind of machine that measures bounce, but the way I have estimated bounce is by using the 14 Vokeys that I own and visually holding them up like this and looking at how they compare to each other, whether the slant that one sees on the sole is comparable. And so for this is information you can't find anywhere else. I have estimated for each of the model years what the bounce is. I've called it either low, mid, or medium, and high. Low being 7 degrees or below, mid being 8 through 10, and then high being 11 and above. And that's all the more precise I want to be. I don't want to give you an exact number, but it's based on a visual comparison with the Vokeys, which I assume have stamped right on them the correct bounce. So that's why I think Wilson wedges are worth your while. They do give you the weight, the EE swing weights, with very few exceptions. All of the Wilson sand wedges made during that 20-year period had swing weights in the E's. Some were really brutes and had swing weights in the F's. There's an occasional D and even an occasional C. Not quite sure where those came from. Maybe those were special order, I'm not sure. But I'm prepared to tell you what the swing weight is on the model years that I discuss. I also want to set the stage for discussing dual wedges, Wilson's dual wedges made during these years, and Wilson's triple duty wedges made during these years. And then finally, Wilson was making a pitching wedge during these years. They were all sold separately. They didn't come as part of the set you would buy. These were premium clubs, top of the line, beautiful, and used by the pros. Arnold Palmer used Wilson Dynapowereds for his late 50s, early 60s victories. I think he won the 58 Masters with a set of 58 Dynapowereds. I think he won the 1960 U.S. Open at Cherry Hills with a set of 1960 Dynapowers. And I own both of those sets from those years, and they're still excellent clubs. I'm familiar with them. But in terms of marketing, Wilson was selling 4 wedges per year for most of these years. Later they seem to have dropped the triple duty out of the Dynapowered line and just put it in the harmonized line, but I don't want to go into too much detail. But the triple duty and the dual were 53 degrees. They're heavy like a sand wedge is. They're low E's, even E3. There are some high D's in there. I don't own all of them, unlike sand wedges, which I do own all of those, an example, a specimen of all. But I've got several triple duties, several duals, and I've got several pitching wedges. And again, they were marketed, typically all 4 were available, and they were for sale separately through the catalog, costing you about $16 or $17, amazingly, was the new price on those. And now they sell for more than that. I will tell you about the value, the Estimated value. Some are worth much more than others. The 58 is the Holy Grail. That's the one that probably was used by Tom Watson. Let me see how I can get the glare out. For this very famous shot at Pebble Beach in the 1982 U.S. Open. You remember, he was on the 17th hole, and here we're detouring into a little bit of trivia and a little bit of history. Bear with me. I enjoy that. He was trailing Jack Nicklaus, who had won more majors than anybody. I think he won 19 second place finishes, or had 19 second place finishes in addition to his 18 majors. I think it's correct to call him the Golden Bear. What an amazing talent. But Tom Watson was no slouch either. He ultimately won 8 majors. Most of those were in the Open Championship in Britain. But as of 1982, when this shot was hit at the U.S. Open in Pebble Beach, he had never won a U.S. Open. So, it was kind of disappointing. And by the way, take a look at the rough that appears in this shot. It's easily ankle high. Just to set the stage, he was maybe 15 feet from the cup, maybe 20 feet. And in this deep rough, his tee shot on the par 3 had gone into very deep rough. He was short-sided. Just an extremely difficult shot. I would suggest that it's the most famous shot in U.S. Open history, and not because it's the only one that was great. There were many that were great. Sarazen's 1935 double eagle at the Masters comes into mind if you're talking about the best shot in majors. But I would say in U.S. Open history, this might be the best ever, not just because of the shot, but also because of the competition, the context that he was facing. He was trailing Jack Nicklaus. Nicklaus was in the clubhouse with the lead. Nicklaus was being interviewed by Jack Whitaker of ABC Sports. Essentially, Nicklaus was being measured for the trophy and measured for the sport coat. And here was Watson coming up, trailing by, I think, a stroke. And he holes out this shot to interrupt the interview, which Nicklaus reportedly was not watching because he was being interviewed, and the roar from outside was heard, and eventually Watson won that, giving him his first U.S. Open title. So here he is competing against the winner of the most majors and the most second place finishes of all time. He's never won a U.S. Open, and he wins it with this shot. What club, trivia, what club was he using? We know this. We know it was a Wilson Dyna-powered wedge from between 56 and 61. And I will show you the 56 through the 61s and the other years. But those are the most coveted years. We don't know for sure which one he was using from among those. The message boards online point to in different directions from among those years. I think it was the 58 because Wilson in the 1990s did a remake of the famous 58, and the 58 has consistently sold for large amounts of money. I bought one for $440, and I've since sold it because I would not use it on the course. I would just hang on to it, and I thought I should get rid of it because I buy my wedges to play them, but I didn't want to play that one. And so I think that it'll turn out, when Tom Watson finally contributes that wedge to a museum somewhere, perhaps the Hall of Fame in Florida, in St. Augustine, it'll turn out to be a 58, which I call the Holy Grail. And I've got some Holy Grails here. They've been re-chromed and re-grooved, but you will be able to see the stampings, which is how these clubs are identified year by year. It's like looking at an automobile and looking at the grille and looking at the ornamentation. That's what allows you to place the model year, and other features too. But the stampings are the primary way you identify the model year. So I'm going to sign off quickly here, but I've told you that I became involved with Wilson Staff wedges in the 90s as I was trying to complete my set of 1969 bullet backs, and that has prompted me to acquire this collection, which I've measured the swing weight on and looked at the bounce, and that's data that I think can be useful to you if you decide to go out and acquire the two wedges that I'm recommending. And so with that, I'll sign off for now, and we'll reconvene later, and I will talk about the first in the series, the brutish, very heavy 1956-57 and the 1958 Holy Grail. Thank you.